Hi, I'm Bea Akins with Laney's Hope, and I hope you enjoy the stories of recovery.
Recovery with my gambling addiction means everything to me. It means hope. It does mean freedom. It means understanding why I'm doing the things that I do or why I did the things that I did. Not everybody needs that in their recovery, but I didn't understand my addiction. And so joining a 12-step program, hearing other people talk about things that it was like my life, but it was their life, that gave me hope in and of itself to know that I wasn't alone. And that has helped make my recovery stronger.
Well, I define recovery in a few different ways. I think of it maybe in the traditional sense of recovering from an illness, which I feel that I'm still in the process of doing. I think of it also as recovering the person that I was before I became addicted to gambling. So I kind of like that idea that I was this person, I thought I was this good person. In my addiction to gambling, I became somebody I didn't recognize and that other people didn't recognize. And so being able to recover my moral compass that existed before I got into that addictive cycle was important. So I kind of think of recovery in those ways, as well as just being a process of continual self-examination and trying to make myself a better person over time.
Wow. Recovery for me means freedom. It means acceptance. It means walking in truth, my truth, no matter if it's painful or if it feels good, but staying present in it. It means, for me, it means happiness. It means I keep my family. Recovery means I can breathe and I can love myself. I learned to love myself in recovery. I learned what love really is in recovery. I learned what peace and joy. Like, there's a difference between happiness and joy. And in recovery, I have joy. And that, to me, is amazing. Hope to me is a future. It's something to hold on to. In my recovery, it means even if today I let my emotions get hijacked by someone else, it's okay. I'm still in progress. I'm a work in progress. And so I have hope. Even when I see my friends in program that may struggle, I have hope for them. And we can have hope together, and that unites us and keeps us on the right path.
After a year of being in a recovery program, I finally got the concept of hope. And that was that I could live in this town of Las Vegas, surrounded by gambling, and know that I would be safe from that urge to go out and destroy myself.
The stigma, well, I think there's a lot of shame, guilt, the dishonesty. You're never really telling the truth.
I think it's true that among the addictions, certainly problem gambling is the least understood in the public consciousness, whereas with the substance addictions, it's very intuitive that you're putting something into your body, you're becoming physically and emotionally tied to that as a result. It's just not as obvious that that gambling should be addictive in the same way. And so finding out that, you know, at least for me as a scientist, that the biochemistry of gambling addiction was identical to the substance addictions was incredibly important.
People definitely get the stigma. I have gotten that from alcoholics saying, well, why didn't you just stop? Hey, we are all addicts and should be all pulling for each other and not judging why one would stick a needle in. It's no different than me putting all my paycheck in a machine.
I've had conversations over the years when I will share that, not only do I come from a line of addicts, I too am in recovery. And they're like, what? You have a master's degree, you're this, you're that. And it's like, recovery and like addiction does not just pick certain people, right? Like the face of addiction, no matter what that addiction is so big, the spectrum is so wide. And I've had people kind of put their nose down, like it's like you couldn't just stop, you couldn't. And it's just like when you really understand addiction and the brain science behind it, like everything, like really, really go into it, I think the stigma would go away. The problem is we have social norms that have people just look at certain addictions as degenerates and untrustworthy, and there's something wrong, and it's like, no, they need help.
What is most misunderstood about gambling addiction? That we can control it. That it's about willpower. Just stop. Why can't you stop?
I can smile and act like everything is fine, and after I've literally lost everything and jeopardized my household, and it's not even considered for others. They're like, oh, well, you can't die from it. It's like, yeah, you can. You can die from a compulsive gambling addiction. Like, I don't even understand. You can die. You can take your own life, or you can do something dangerous that endangers your life and lose your life. Like, it is just as insidious as any other addiction and disease. And I wish more people understood that and accepted that. An addict is an addict, and it doesn't matter your drug of choice. For me, it was gambling.
What I think is most misunderstood about a gambling addiction are the people that have gambling addictions. I think that, to me, it was always in my head that it was older men who were at the sports book, or it was a grandma, like that's kind of what I had in my head. But I realized that my gambling started at the age of 9 when I was going with my family to the horse track, And so there's so much about gambling that's embedded into society and our world. I mean, scratch off tickets. And so playing the lottery, bingo, these are all things, fantasy football, these are all things that are considered gambling. So I was doing it and I didn't even realize that it fell under the heading. I have 2 master's degrees. I teach coping skills to other people, and yet for me, I lacked coping skills when things got tough. And so there is no face to gambling addiction because anybody could do it. Anybody could be a candidate, It doesn't matter your economic status. Your last dollar is your last dollar. It doesn't matter, We isolate, we hide. And so there's no face to it. And that's what I've learned being in the program.
Well, I think, again, it's that it is a true addiction, that it is directly related, at least in a biochemical sense, to the substance addictions in terms of the effect it has on the individual. I think a lot of the, even a lot of the signs and symptoms are identical to the substance addictions in terms of the lying behavior that I got into, and certainly that others get into when they're in addiction. Unexplained absences, the financial impact on both the individual and the family, as well as maybe others. You can see that with, I think, across the spectrum in all addictions.
It will metastasize in all areas of your life if not treated. And I would like people not in the programs of recovery to understand, don't laugh at this. It's deadly. If someone says a compulsive gambler, don't say, Pat, just stop, suck it up. You did okay, other things in your life, take care of this. No, because you know, as we learn, there's 3 areas it'll go. It is death, insanity, and prison. And that insanity doesn't have to be a clinical, medical insanity. It's living between your ears and what you've done and what you can't stop doing every moment of every day. That's the insanity.
I think the thing I would most like people to understand, and it's kind of 3 parts really, that gambling addiction is a real thing, but that it's very treatable, and that treatment is very successful. I think that's, in a nutshell, what I'd like people to know about gambling addiction.
I think the one thing that I would want people to know about a gambling disorder is that it's not a choice. It starts as fun, and then at some point, like for me, it became a job, and I didn't know it until I was in the depths of it, that I was truly addicted. I would try to walk away and I couldn't. I would beat myself up because I could never leave with money. I mean, I would watch other people leave with money and I would wonder, what's wrong with me? I was going to the ATM and I was saying, okay, this is my last $20. Okay, I'm gonna hide my debit card. I'm not gonna bring it in. But I just couldn't stop, and my fiance would look at me and he would ask me, you know, why can't you stop? And I didn't know. I had no idea. I just knew that something was wrong. So if you know somebody who has some of these characteristics, ask them, don't accuse them, I think is how I would. It's hard for an addict to admit at times that they are an addict, you know, they don't want to give up the power and control in their life, you know, but I think starting a conversation, you know, seeing, if you see signs of addiction, the conversation can happen, you know. I just think that people need to be open to it.
This is a disease, just like diabetes, just like heart disease. And if I tell you that I have that disease, are you going to throw me to the curb? You know, if I told you I had diabetes, are you going to throw me out to the curb? It's a disease. There's help. There's support, but it also helps to have that family behind you, pushing for you, pulling for you. And without that, with that feeling of being alone, you can't do this alone. And you shouldn't have to do this alone.
I want people to know that it exists and it's real and it needs to be treated with respect and the same intensity that we do with other addictions, and to not see it as something other. I want people to know that there's probably a compulsive gambler in your life and you don't even know it. And just to be aware. I want people to know that, you know, that there's a lot of people hurting and who need help. And just ask some questions and be open to hearing the truth and being helpful and supportive to those who are suffering. But just to really be aware, we're here.